Hi there, welcome to my 10-minute moan. Now this 10-minute moan is regarding the state of the Scottish Government's freedom of information. And just to give you some background, the person in charge of the freedom of information for Scotland, for all bodies, is the Scottish Information Commissioner. And that job is a limited 6-year cycle, which makes sense. You know, you wouldn't want somebody getting too close to the people in government or the other bodies that they have to oversee, and get too comfortable. So every 6 years there's a new Scottish Information Commissioner, and the most recent one was Dan Fitzhenry, and he started 2017 and has just recently finished his 6-year cycle. Now, I can't think of anyone in a better position to evaluate the transparency and indeed how much value for money, how fit for purpose the Scottish Government are with their freedom of information requests than indeed the Scottish Information Commissioner. You would take it that he's got a good insight, better insight than me or anyone else in the nation. And as he was leaving, he'd done his last annual report on the Scottish Government's freedom of information report, and he highlighted it as not fit for purpose. This is the Scottish Information Commissioner talking about the Scottish Government, saying that the freedom of information policies and procedures are not fit for purpose. It's a bit scary, isn't it? And he highlighted that there was 117 cases of a backlog. This was as of May 2023, and some of them were taking over 2 years to resolve. He drew particular bad in his report. He looked sort of particularly bad on the SPADs, the special advisors for the Scottish Government. He was a bit dubious about their involvement in freedom of information requests for the Scottish Government. However, the Scottish Government came back and committed to openness and transparency, was their retort, which is fascinating. So you've got the Commissioner, the Information Commissioner, telling you that it's not fit for purpose, but you've got the Scottish Government telling you that they are committed to openness and transparency, which is absolutely fantastic. And in his reports included problems where he's seen there was lack of details, lack of training, the delays, and poor record management. This is the Scottish Government we're talking about, not like a local council or a bowling club. The Scottish Government. Lack of training, poor record management in their freedom of information responses. And he said that it showed and you need to remember this because I'm going to come back with something the Scottish Government said in a minute. He said it showed a massive deterioration between the year 2022 going into 2023, which was his last year. So his last final report suggested that there was a deterioration of the quality of the delivery of freedom of information requests. Now, there's a law that you must respond to non-sensitive, that's like normal ones, within a 20-day working day period, which is a month. And we couldn't even achieve that. The average, now this isn't one's coming in and go, well, that's a simple one, bang, here, send that back out. The average was 27 days. However, non-sensitive, and I need to stress this, is non-sensitive cases. This isn't asking you really awkward questions about, for example, can we see the evidence that was submitted by Nicola Sturgeon for the allegations of sexual misconduct towards the previous First Minister, Alex Salmond. Stuff like that you can imagine is quite sensitive. We're not talking about that stuff. We're talking about just average, classified as non-sensitive, and this is classified by the Scottish Government as non-sensitive. And in the last year with his report, there was 140 cases that were taken over 100 days to get responses. Now this isn't 100 days normal, this is 100 working days. So for every 5 days you get an extra 2 at the weekend. So in real terms, it's not 100 days, it's probably 120 days. 4 months. It might have to be done in 20 days, 3 weeks, 20 working days, 3 weeks. There was 75 cases that were 200 days to respond. There was 38 cases, 400 working days to respond, and a dozen cases of 500 days. There's 365 days in a year. There's probably therefore less than 300 working days in a year. And there was 12 cases. It took 500 working days to get a response. That just big. This is fun. I need to keep telling you this is. Not, I don't have the figures for the sensitive cases, but if that's the figures for the non-sensitive cases, can you imagine how bad the sensitive cases would be? His words, quote the Scottish Information Commissioner. Hello you, where are you going? You just stay there. Sorry guys. Cush is getting a bit of a following, by the way, so a lot of people get upset when he's not on camera, so I do apologise guys, I must do better. Anyway, back to the Scottish Information Commissioner. In this report, he was quoted as saying he's extremely disappointed and wholly unacceptable freedom of information conduct by the Scottish Government. There was a widespread failure of record management. Now I can only hazard a guess what he means by that, but record management is keeping records, isn't it? And there was widespread failure to do that. This is frightening. I know that, listen, I think most people that watch my videos understand I don't have much faith in the Scottish National Party and the government. But this is frightening. This is 6 years this guy's been in this job, and in his final 6th year end report, he's telling us there's widespread failure in the records management of the Scottish Government. He's been at them for 6 years. This is his last report, no his first one, that they can suddenly go, oh, we better, up our game here. Now, the Business Minister, George Adams, was given this report. Wait till you hear this. I welcome the significant progress this report shows. Are you listening here? The report was damning. Widespread failure of records, extremely disappointed and wholly unacceptable. The Scottish Government responds, I welcome the significant progress this report shows. How bad was the year before if this is a significant progress? These people are insane. Anyway, and he reminded us that the Scottish Government remain committed to openness and transparency. You get 12 cases, freedom of information for non-sensitive cases. 12 of them have went over 500 working days. And you're trying to tell me that you are committed to openness and transparency? God knows what it's like if I had the information for the sensitive cases. Cuckoo. Absolutely cuckoo. But this is just the normal way that the Scottish Government do their business. They just talk nonsense and the cult believe them. But we've got a new Scottish Information Commissioner who may or may not be better or worse than the one before. However, this one is a former police inspector, David Hamilton. He started the 23rd of October this year. Now we've got two wee bits of insight in how Mr. David Hamilton may or may not deal with his job. But in 2012 he was critical of a story in a newspaper, and he described it as lazy freedom of information journalism. So he was having a pop at the guy that wrote it because he's went and got a freedom of information request and wrote a story about it. And the new Scottish Information Commissioner referred to it as lazy FOI journalism. Now we could, well, that was a long time ago. That was, granted that was. However, the same chap in 2020 tweeted slaughtering a newspaper story which was regarding a freedom of information about a police incident with a police car driving over 120 or 130 miles per hour. They got a freedom of information and wrote a story about this cop car doing excessive speeds. I think it was the A9, topical, the A9 that we know is a very dangerous road. And then he tweeted this in 2020. She slaughtered the newspaper for writing the story and said, I quote, it's time to review FOI legislation. So, now, I don't know if these things will have any bearing on how Mr Hamilton does or doesn't do in his role as the Scottish Information Commissioner. But it's not a great starting point, is it? But here's the thing. The government, who have not told us what the split was, but they're saying it was a cross-party board that, got this guy the job. So out of the 5 on it, I don't know if there was 4 of them were non-SNP or 3 or whatever, but that's what they're trying to say. It was a cross-party panel that selected Mr Hamilton. Did they miss these things? Again, I'm not saying David Hamilton is going to be the best or the worst Scottish Information Commissioner ever. I don't know. I've never met the man. I couldn't tell you if he walked past me in the street. And I would like to think that if I was sitting on a committee picking the next Scottish Information Commissioner, and I was aware of these things that he'd said in the past, that I would at least ask him about them. But this is the Scottish Government we're talking about. They probably didn't even know about them. Now, I found out about them in a quick Google search. I wasn't trying to give him a £77,000 a year as a Scottish Information Commissioner. So God knows if these people on this cross-party government panel bothered to do even that. But if they did, you would kind of think, they would have asked him about it and, got some feedback about it. And God knows what he said or how he dealt with it, if he had to deal with it at all. But, me being me, I don't know the man for Adam, I ain't going to judge and jury on this guy, but we will see in the next maybe 12 to 18 months when his first reports come out, if indeed he is someone who seems as concerned about freedom of information as his predecessor. His predecessor seemed to understand the importance of it, and at no time tweeted, "It's time to review freedom of information legislation." So there we go. We've got a Scottish Government that can't even satisfy the previous Scottish Information Commissioner, that they're fit for purpose. Not fit for purpose is how the Scottish Information Commissioner described the Scottish Government's handling of information requests. And one final thought on this. Every week I see stories in newspapers regarding information that they've obtained through freedom of information. And some it's pretty horrific. And you see some of the stuff coming back with retractions and stuff, and people having to go to court to get stuff unretracted. And that my only hope is this David Hamilton, ex-constable, is as thorough as his predecessor and holds these people to task. Or the next 6 years, you might not see these stories that David Hamilton, Scottish Information Commissioner, has previously not liked being in newspapers. Fingers crossed on that one. Anyway, as usual, thanks for getting this far in the video. If you've liked it, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more, hit the subscribe button and notifications. And also the wee videos showing up about here, the one that I recommend you watch next if you've enjoyed this one. Okay, so thanks very much for viewing. Have a great day. Bye now.